Hello, everybody. So this is video lecture 6 for the chapter of early childhood. And in this lecture and the next one, we're going to be talking about social and emotional development. So remember, the chapter is broken up into physical, cognitive, and social and emotional. And this topic is really a little bit closer to my heart because it's closer to the sociology stuff. And I really find the discussion of emotions quite interesting. So this slide is about this concept of self, the self concept. So we're going to define self concept as who we are, what we are capable of doing, and how we think and feel. And there are a couple different theories for our purposes, theorists that explain or highlight the way we define the self or the way that we come to formulate this sense of self. And you may remember from from a previous lecture when we were talking about memory, and memory is thought to be something like specifically autobiographical or episodic memory is thought to be something that's dependent upon our comprehension of the self. So the self is, again, okay, we've already talked about that. Cooley's theory is what we call the looking glass self. And Cooley theorized that the way that we come to perceive ourself is based on how we, and this is the key, how we perceive other people perceive us. So if someone is nice to us, we think about ourselves in a positive way. If somebody is mean to us, we think about ourselves in a negative way. The example that I traditionally use is, so you're a toddler, right? You're 3 years old and you toddle into the kitchen and your mom says, "Oh, hey there, handsome, how are you? It's so great to see you." And this happens day in and day out, and you sort of come to believe that, hey, you are handsome and everybody loves you. On the other hand, you're a toddler and you toddle into the kitchen and the adults are grumpy and they're like, "Oh man, you stink. What are you doing up?" You internalize that. The thing about Cooley's theory, this looking glass self idea, is it's sort of dependent upon my perception of what other people perceive of me is accurate. So there's also the possibility that you can misinterpret signals, right? So here I use an example of when I was early on teaching. I had a student that used to sit in the back of the class with their hands like this. I internalized that. They don't like me. They don't like what I have to say. And as it turned out, when we later came to know each other, that had nothing to do with the body language. It was something else, right? As is so often the case, it's not the person. So looking glass self. The looking glass is the mirror, and people are the mirror. Then you have Mead. Mead's theory about how we learn to take the self is through what he called taking the role of the other. And basically, in the context of children, taking the role of the other is pretend. So when I take the role of the other, we have the generalized other and we have the specific other. When I take the role of, or the significant other, when I take the role of the other person, pretend to be the other person, that is how I come to conceptualize and understand sort of my place in the world. So sometimes I'll ask students to do a little activity about when do they, maybe we didn't, no, I don't think it was in this class. Think about a time where you learned about the world by taking the role of the other, by pretend play. So I'll use my daughter as an example of this one. I remember the time I was super excited because I caught her playing. She had a big stack of books, and she was playing librarian, right? And all of these books, and she was making a sound, and that made me very proud because what that meant was she was pretending to be the librarian. She was imagining what it meant to be somebody else. Okay. Self-esteem. So they have this concept about who we are. Self-esteem is a fancy term for the value that we place on ourselves. We can place a positive value on ourselves. We can place a negative value. This is related to attachment. Insecurely attached people have a tendency to think less well of themselves. They feel less secure. They feel less safe into who they are. This may also have implications or be related to what your textbook talks about, maternal negative effect. So this means if your mother, and see, these things are all tied together. Maternal negative effect would be Say if the mother is depressed or if the mother is disengaged for some sort of emotional reason, and then the child comes to experience the mother in kind of in a negative way, and then the child then internalizes these negative feelings about themselves. So this gets tied up into the looking glass self. That how I feel about myself is influenced by somebody else. So you can kind of see where this is very sociological. The self-concept, what's to say, response initiation. So self-control, I'm sorry. So under self-control, we have this concept of response initiation, which refers to the ability to not initiate a behavior, ability to not initiate a behavior. Response inhibition, which is the ability to stop a behavior, and then delayed gratification, which is the ability to, instead of act now, I'm able to delay my response to somebody else. And what we know about delayed gratification is that the ability to delay gratification does predict academic performance. So all of these things, like these ideas of self-control, get tied up with our cognitive development, because cognitive development is partially dependent on our ability to control our frontal lobe, right, our prefrontal cortex, and our ability to comprehend that we are somehow different from other people. So the self, how I feel about myself, my self-esteem, and these things then play into our ability to either initiate an activity, to delay initiating an activity, or to stop acting in a way that's not good. All right, so part of our social and emotional control. Oh, I forgot a third guy here. Probably should have been on the previous slide, and that's Erikson. You may remember Erikson from the chapters on previous chapters where we talked about theory, and his model, of course, says that we all go through these different stages of life, and there are different crises. There are different goals that we should emotional, social, psychological goals to accomplish at these different stages. This stage in early childhood is what Erikson called initiative versus guilt. Initiative is a child learns to act on their own, and when they learn to act on their own, will their initiative be rewarded? Will they be successful? Will they come to learn that acting is a good thing, that acting independently is a good thing, and I am positively regarded for that? Or will a child learn that if I do something, if I act, if I initiate, if I try something, will I experience guilt? Will I be shamed because I spilled the milk? Will I be criticized because I didn't do it right? Will my attempt to do something, to initiate, to act on the world be rewarded, or will I be punished? And the idea from a developmental perspective, or even from a parent or a child care perspective, is if you give children opportunities to be successful, to initiate an activity and be successful in that initiation, they will learn then to continue to try to initiate. If, on the other hand, everything they try to do is met with criticism and punishment, and they're unsuccessful, eventually they're just going to quit. This is kind of what we mean by learned helplessness. Not exactly, but kind of what we mean by learned helplessness. So the opportunities to explore, to make decisions, to try things, and a caregiver should give children opportunities to be successful at trying things. If you probably have had these experiences. If every time you try something you fail, or you're criticized, or you're punished, you kind of give up trying, right? You give up trying. Okay. Also in this chapter, I'm looking at my time. I feel like I should stop because I'm already at 9 minutes. And the next one I'll pick up, we will talk about gender identity in this stage of life.